Ladies, picture this. He looks at you like you're the only woman in the room. His touch lingers just a moment too long. And when you speak, he hangs onto every single word like it's poetry. But then something shifts. He pulls back. He becomes distant. He says things like, "It's complicated," or "The timing isn't right." Sound familiar? Here's what most women don't realize when a man is deeply, madly in love with you, but there's something complicated going on. His behavior becomes a beautiful contradiction that will drive you absolutely wild if you don't understand what's happening beneath the surface. Tonight, I'm going to reveal the 5 unmistakable signs that he's completely gone for you, even when life circumstances or his own fears are creating barriers between you. Because here's the truth that no one talks about. Sometimes the most intense, soul-stirring love comes wrapped in complications that make it even more powerful. If you've ever wondered whether that incredible connection you feel is real, or if you're just imagining the electricity between you two, stay with me. By the end of this, you'll know exactly where you stand, and more importantly, you'll understand the psychology behind why some men love the hardest when they're fighting against it the most. So grab your favorite drink, get comfortable, and let's dive into the beautiful, messy, intoxicating world of complicated love. Trust me, what I'm about to share will change how you see every lingering glance, every hesitant text, and every moment of tension between you forever. The first sign that he's deeply in love but fighting complications is what I call the intensity paradox. This is when his feelings for you are so overwhelming that they actually scare him into creating distance. Yet that same intensity leaks out in the most unexpected moments. You'll notice this in the way he looks at you when he thinks you're not paying attention. There's a hunger in his eyes, a vulnerability that he quickly masks when you catch him staring. It's not just attraction, it's recognition, like his soul is calling out to yours and he's terrified of how good that feels. The intensity paradox shows up in his body language too. He'll unconsciously mirror your movements, lean in when you speak, or find excuses to be in your personal space. But then, as if catching himself in this magnetic pull, he'll create physical distance. He might step back suddenly, cross his arms, or busy himself with his phone. It's like watching someone fight against gravity. Pay attention to how he responds when you're emotional or vulnerable. A man who's deeply in love but complicated will have an almost protective instinct that he can't hide. If you're upset, stressed, or going through something difficult, watch how his entire demeanor shifts. He becomes more focused, more present, more determined to help you feel better. This isn't casual concern. This is the kind of care that comes from someone whose happiness is fundamentally tied to yours. The contradiction becomes even more obvious in digital communication. He might take hours to respond to a simple text, but when he does, it's thoughtful, detailed, and reveals that he's been thinking about your conversation long after it ended. Or he'll like your social media posts immediately, like he's been waiting, watching, but then won't message you for days. Here's what's really happening. He's experiencing what psychologists call approach avoidance conflict. His heart is pulling him toward you with incredible force, but his mind is listing all the reasons why it's complicated. Maybe he's in a relationship that's ending but not over yet. Maybe there's a career situation, a family obligation, or a fear of commitment that's making him feel like loving you is impossible right now. But here's the beautiful part about the intensity paradox. Real love doesn't dim just because it's inconvenient. Instead, it becomes more concentrated, more potent. Every moment with you becomes charged with meaning, because he knows it's precious and possibly temporary. You'll feel this intensity in the quality of your conversations. When you're together, everything else fades away. He gives you his complete attention in a way that's almost overwhelming. The rest of the world disappears because, in those moments, he's allowing himself to feel the full weight of his emotions for you. The key is recognizing that this push and pull isn't rejection. It's actually evidence of how deeply he feels. Men who don't care don't create internal conflicts for themselves. They don't fight against their feelings or struggle with complications. They simply move on. But a man who's deeply in love, he'll wrestle with those feelings because they matter too much to ignore, even when everything else in his life is telling him to walk away. The second sign is something I call the protective shield mechanism. When a man is deeply in love but facing complications, he develops an almost instinctual need to shield you from the chaos in his life, even if it means creating emotional distance between you. This is where his behavior might seem confusing or even hurtful, but understanding the psychology behind it will completely change your perspective. He starts compartmentalizing his life in a way that keeps you safe from whatever complications he's dealing with. If he's going through a messy divorce, family drama, career upheaval, or any other major life challenge, he won't bring that energy into your space. You might notice that he keeps conversations lighter when he's going through something difficult. He'll ask about your day, your dreams, your thoughts. But when you try to reciprocate and ask about his life, he deflects with charm and humor. This isn't because he doesn't trust you. It's because he treasures what you two have so much that he refuses to contaminate it with his problems. The protective shield shows up in how he talks about the future, too. He might avoid making concrete plans or commitments, not because he doesn't want a future with you, but because he can't bear the thought of promising you something he's not sure he can deliver right now. His complications make him feel like he's not worthy of your love, so he protects you from his uncertainty. Watch how he handles other people knowing about you. If his situation is truly complicated, he might be selective about who knows about your connection. This can feel like he's hiding you, but often it's the opposite. He's protecting something precious from people who might not understand or who might complicate things further. Here's what's fascinating about the protective shield. It actually reveals the depth of his feelings. A man who sees you as casual wouldn't bother protecting you from his mess. He'd let you deal with it, or simply not care how it affects you. But when he loves you deeply, your peace of mind becomes more important to him than his own emotional needs. You'll see this protection extend to your reputation and emotional well-being too. He'll be careful about how your involvement with him might affect your life. If his complications could create drama, judgment, or pain for you, he'll try to shoulder that burden alone. He'd rather you think he's emotionally unavailable than risk you getting hurt by association. The shield mechanism also shows up in intimate moments. He might hold back emotionally or physically, not because he doesn't want you, but because he knows that getting closer will make it harder to do what he thinks is right, which is usually keeping you at a safe distance until his complications resolve. But here's the tell. telltale sign that this shield comes from love, not indifference. Despite all his careful boundaries, he can't help himself from showing up for you when it really matters. If you're in genuine need, if something important happens in your life, or if you're struggling with something significant, his protective instincts will override his shield. He'll be there, fully present, giving you exactly what you need, even if it complicates his own situation further. The protective shield isn't rejection, it's actually one of the most loving things a complicated man can do. The third sign is what I call the vulnerability leak. No matter how hard a man tries to keep his complicated feelings contained, when he's truly in love, his emotional walls develop cracks that allow his deepest feelings to seep through in the most unexpected moments. These vulnerability leaks happen when his guard is down. Maybe he's had a drink, maybe he's exhausted, maybe you've just shared something that touches his heart. In these moments, the real him emerges, and what you hear will take your breath away. He might say things like, "You have no idea what you mean to me," or "I think about you more than I should." The words tumble out with an honesty that surprises even him. Pay attention to how he talks about you to other people when he thinks you can't hear. The vulnerability leak often happens in conversations with friends, family, or colleagues where your name comes up. Suddenly, his voice changes. There's a softness, a reverence when he speaks about you that he can't fake or hide. He might not say much, but the way he says it reveals everything. The leak also shows up in his storytelling. He remembers everything about you, not just the big moments, but the tiny details that most people forget. He'll bring up something you mentioned weeks ago in passing, or he'll notice subtle changes in your mood, your hair, your energy. This isn't casual observation. This is the behavior of someone who studies you because he's captivated by every facet of who you are. Watch for the vulnerability leak in moments of transition, when you're saying goodbye, when you're about to hang up the phone, or when you're leaving after spending time together. That's when you might catch him looking at you like he's memorizing your face, or he might say something that lingers in the air between you. Drive safe becomes, "Please be careful, I need you to be okay. See you later," becomes, "I hope I see you soon." Digital communication reveals vulnerability leaks too. He might send you a song that reminds him of you, share a random thought that shows you've been on his mind, or respond to your social media with an intensity that feels different from his usual interactions. Late-night messages are especially telling. When the world is quiet and his defenses are down, that's when his real feelings emerge. The most powerful vulnerability leak happens when he talks about his complications themselves. If he ever opens up about what's making the situation difficult, listen to how he frames it. A man who's deeply in love will talk about his complications as obstacles to being with you, not reasons to avoid relationships in general. The pain in his voice won't be about his situation. It'll be about how his situation affects his ability to love you the way he wants to. Sometimes the vulnerability leak is physical. Maybe he reaches for your hand unconsciously, or he hugs you a little too long, or he touches your face in a way that's more intimate than the moment calls for. His body betrays what his words are trying to protect. Here's the most important thing to understand about vulnerability leaks: they're involuntary. He's not strategically showing, you glimpses of his feelings to keep you interested. These moments happen because his love for you is so genuine and so strong that it can't be completely contained, no matter how complicated his situation is. The fourth sign is something I call the future fantasy phenomenon. When a man is deeply in love but trapped in complications, he can't help but create mental pictures of a life with you. And these fantasies leak into your conversations in the most beautiful ways. You'll notice this when he talks about someday, or when things settle down, or if circumstances were different. He's not making promises he can't keep. He's sharing dreams that feel so real to him that he can't help but voice them. He might say things like, "I'd love to take you to this place I know," or "You would love my hometown," or "We should try that restaurant together sometime." These aren't casual suggestions. They're glimpses into how he sees you fitting into his life. The future fantasy shows up in how he talks about his goals and dreams too. Suddenly, his plans start including space for a partner, for shared experiences, for the kind of life that requires two people. He might mention wanting to travel more, or thinking about moving somewhere new, or considering changes to his living situation. What he's really saying is that he's reimagining his future with you in it. Listen for the hypotheticals. If we were together, what would you do if? How would you feel about? These aren't random thought experiments. He's testing the waters, trying to understand how compatible your dreams are, how you might navigate challenges together, how you picture a shared life. Every hypothetical question is him gathering information for the fantasy life he's building in his mind. Pay attention to how he talks about timeline, too. A man who's deeply in love but complicated will often have a very specific sense of when he thinks his complications might resolve. He might say things like, "After this project is finished," or "once I get through this transition," or "when things calm down in a few months." He's not just talking about his schedule. He's talking about when he thinks he might be free to love you openly. The future fantasy phenomenon also shows up in gift giving and shared experiences. He might bring you something small that made him think of you, or suggest activities that feel more like couple experiences than casual hanging out. He's unconsciously creating memories and traditions that feel like the foundation of something bigger. Here's what's particularly revealing. Notice how he talks about other people's relationships. When couples around you get engaged, married, or hit relationship milestones, pay attention to his comments. A man who's fantasizing about a future with you will reveal his own desires through how he reacts to other people's love stories. He might seem more interested in relationship talk than usual, or make comments about what makes relationships work. The most powerful aspect of the future fantasy phenomenon is how specific his dreams become. He doesn't just imagine being with you. He imagines particular scenarios, specific moments, detailed experiences. Maybe he pictures cooking together, or traveling to certain places, or how you'd fit into his family dynamics. The more detailed these fantasies become, the deeper his feelings run. But here's what makes this complicated. He shares these fantasies and then pulls back, sometimes immediately. It's like he catches himself dreaming out loud and remembers why it's impossible right now. Don't let the pullback fool you into thinking the fantasy isn't real. It's so real that it scares him. The fifth and most profound sign is what I call the sacrifice syndrome. This is when a man who's deeply in love starts making choices that prioritize your happiness and well-being over his own immediate desires, even when the complications in his life make those sacrifices difficult or costly. The sacrifice syndrome shows up in both big and small ways. He might turn down opportunities that would take him away from your city, even if they're good for his career. He might decline social events or commitments that conflict with time he could spend with you. Or he might make financial decisions, family choices, or lifestyle changes that keep him available for whatever relationship is possible between you right now. Watch how he handles his time and energy when it comes to you. Even when he's overwhelmed with his complications, he'll carve out space for you. He might be dealing with a crisis at work, family drama, or personal challenges, but he'll still show up when you need him. This isn't about grand gestures. It's about consistent small choices that prove you're a priority even when logic says you shouldn't be. The sacrifice syndrome also appears in how he manages his other relationships. If his situation involves other people, maybe an ex-wife, family members, or business partners who complicate his ability to be with you, watch how he navigates those relationships. A man who's deeply in love will start setting boundaries, having difficult conversations, or making changes that create space for what he wants with you, even when it's easier to maintain the status quo. Pay attention to his emotional sacrifices too. He might sacrifice his own need for clarity or resolution because he doesn't want to pressure you while his situation is complicated. He'll live with uncertainty, anxiety, and frustration rather than make demands that might push you away or force you into an uncomfortable position. Here's what's particularly telling about the sacrifice syndrome. He starts protecting your ability to choose freely. Instead of trying to convince you to wait for him or manipulate you into staying, he'll often sacrifice his own security by being honest about his complications. He'll tell you when you should probably walk away, even when every fiber of his being wants you to stay. The most powerful sacrifices are the ones he makes to his own ego and pride. He might apologize when he doesn't have to, admit when he's wrong more quickly than usual, or show vulnerability that he normally keeps hidden. He's sacrificing his emotional armor because being genuine with you matters more than being right or looking strong. Sometimes the sacrifice syndrome shows up as him sacrificing immediate gratification for long-term possibility. He might turn down physical intimacy or emotional closeness in the short term because he believes that waiting and doing things right will create a better foundation for when his complications resolve. The most heartbreaking aspect of the sacrifice syndrome is when he sacrifices his own happiness because he believes his complications make him unworthy of your love. He might try to convince you to be with someone else who can offer you more right now, even though doing so tears him apart inside. Here's how you know these sacrifices come from deep love rather than manipulation. They're often invisible to you until much later, and they never come with strings attached or expectations of reciprocation. He makes them because loving you has become more important than protecting himself. Beautiful souls, if you've recognized your situation in these 5 signs, take a moment to let this truth sink in. You are deeply loved. Yes, it's complicated. Yes, it's frustrating. Yes, it sometimes feels impossible. But what you're experiencing is real, profound, and worth understanding. The question isn't whether his feelings are genuine. They absolutely are. The question is what you want to do with this knowledge. Some complications resolve with time, patience, and communication. Others require difficult choices that only you can make for yourself. Remember this, you deserve love that's not just deep, but also available. You deserve someone who can show up fully for the relationship you want to create together. Don't let understanding his love become an excuse to accept less than you deserve.